Hi, I'm Gary Strigler, a custom home builder and trim carpenter. For about the last 3 or 4 months, some buddies and I have been trying out DeWalt's new oscillating multi-tool. It's amazing how many of the jobs that we've struggled with in the past I'm getting done faster and more efficiently. So I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that I've found, and we're going to be checking with my buddies and seeing how it's worked out for them too. So many times when I'm working on a stairway that I just take this multi-tool out and I'll remove a little bit of material there, make a little bit of notch maybe on a stair tread that's not quite going in the way I want it to go in. Again, there's just so many ways that having a tool that I can make a really fine, accurate cut and go straight in a plunge cut comes in handy.
All the others that I've used too, this one's been the best. I mean, it's a lot faster. It's a lot smoother. I cut some maple with it here just not too long ago, and that was the first time I used it. And I just couldn't believe how quick it went through that maple. It's like cutting butter.
The variable speed on it is really what makes a difference for me. With all the other ones I've ever had, you know, it's just you just turn it on and it goes, and then you're sitting here with it, you know, going 100 miles an hour trying to hit the grout line and not the tile. And that makes a big difference in what I do.
What I like about it is the long trigger on it, because on the other one I've been using, it has a small trigger and you can only use that one finger. This one, no matter where I grab it, I've always got access to the trigger, whether it's like this, cutting, using my thumb, no matter what way I grab it, I always get access to the trigger, which I love. When I get this casing on, and if there's a little bit of offset, I always want my joints all smooth whenever it's painted, where it finishes up good, and it's just popping that off, putting that on, and go to town sanding. It just, you know, the quicker you can hang it, you get paid by the door, the more money you make. 10 times faster than using a knife and a hammer. Probably sped up my door hanging like twice as fast through a house.
I'm Gary Strigler. One of the trim details that we're asked to do over and over again is panel wainscot. This is a small section I'm going to be installing here in a minute, and one of the challenges that we face is cutting these electrical boxes in, especially if they happen to land in a corner like this. Now, a lot of times we'll cut these out with a jigsaw, sometimes we'll try and cut them out from the back or something, but you always run the risk of overcutting the hole when you're doing that, and if you try and cut it out from the front, you might tear out. Now, when it's in the corner like this, I couldn't even get a saw down in there to do that. This is why I love to use the multi-tool for this job. I can zero in right on the cut, and the variable speed is going to let me start and ease my way in. I can come right to the corner, and because of the fine teeth on this blade, there's not a chance that I'm going to end up burring up or tearing up this wood. I really like to be able to cut a panel like this from the face side so I can see what I'm doing. And also I don't have to think backwards. You know, they used to joke about when you cut crown mold, you think upside down and backwards. Well, this is almost as bad. If you have to be laying out all your panel work and the cuts on the back, you can really get confused and make a mess. So because of this blade has such fine tooth and it makes such a great cut, I can easily cut from the face side and not have to worry about the wood tearing up. This is a great application for this tool. And once I've cut through all the veneers on the face, even if there's just a tiny bit hanging in the corner, I can just pop it out, almost like you'd bust out a sheetrock box if you're hanging sheetrock. I'm Gary Strigler. One of the jobs I'm going to be doing today is installing a disappearing ironing board in this wall. Now I've got it laid out, so the next step is going to be cutting a hole through the sheetrock. Now in the past we've used a recip saw to do that, but I'm just going to tell you that can really turn into a bad day. One time I cut through some elevator control wires that were back in the sheetrock and it was about a $2,000 mistake. But today I'm not going to be worried because I'm going to be using this multi-tool with a depth cutting guide, so I won't be cutting through more than about a 1/4 inch of the sheetrock. So I'm going to be pretty much just taking it easy. Oh man, I can see 3 wires from here, and I'm pretty certain I would have cut at least 2 of them if I hadn't been using this multi-tool. So I'm really glad I was doing that. Now, the next thing I've got to do is verify the size of the opening, and I'll be ready to set my ironing board in place. Well, I've got a little bit of a problem. This opening's a little bit tight here. You know, framing isn't always perfect. So what I'm going to do is take the multi-tool using that depth gauge and set it to where I can just make a quick series of cuts into the side of this stud, and I should be able to just chisel out in between those cuts. It's an old trick that I learned from a carpenter years ago. So once I make my way down the whole cavity here, I'm going to pick up that extra 1/4 inch I've got to have to make the ironing board fit. Hi, I'm Gary Strigler. We do a lot of custom work for our clients, and this piece is a great example. What we're going to need to do today is install it on this wall, and the only thing that's standing between us and that is this bit of baseboard that we need to cut out of the way. Now I'm going to use this DeWalt multi-tool to make fast work of that baseboard. Back in the old days, we would have had to maybe used a recip saw or just pulled the whole piece of baseboard out, which could really make a mess. The thing I love about this tool is it lets me make a really fine cut right down through the baseboard without damaging anything behind it, because everybody that's done this sort of work knows that there could be a wire or something like that behind there that I don't want to cut. And this depth gauge is really going to help me control just how far I'm cutting through the material. Another thing I love about this is it's not going to make a lot of dust like some other type of saw might do, where you get a bunch of dust airborne in this finished house. So here's the steps we're going to use to mount this piece. First of all, we're going to stick it in place, and I'm going to scribe a line on either side that's our cut line. Then I'll tack a block right to that cut line, and we'll just run the multi-tool right up against that block, cutting through the baseboard, and we'll just pull the middle part of the baseboard out, leaving the part to each side undisturbed, which is really going to be the best thing for my client and for me. So let's see how this works out. Now, as I was finishing this cut up, I was able to leverage against this depth stop, and that let me roll the cut right up to the top of the baseboard so I didn't do any damage to the sheetrock at the top of that baseboard. That's the kind of precision that you need when you're trying to do this type of work. In the old days, it wouldn't have been a question of whether I could make that cut without damaging any sheetrock. It would have been more like just how much sheetrock damage we're going to have. Now, the last thing that I want to do is come in and cut this caulk using the blade, because that caulk is really adhered to the paper on the sheetrock, and if I just start prying now, it's conceivable that the paper might tear back like that and undo all that great work we've done so far. So I'm just going to take this stop off and run the blade on the top of the caulk, and we'll be ready to pop this baseboard out of the way and get this piece put in place. One of the things I really like is the fact that the variable speed lets me slow up right at the end where I don't go charging onward past where I need to stop cutting. There's a stud there. Well, that's just about as good a fit as I'd ever hoped to get. It's just precisely what I was looking for when I thought about cutting this piece in. And the part I like the best is it fit, I'm done, I don't have to call any other subs. All we're going to do now is just put a couple screws down through the top where they won't be seen, and we're done. I'm Gary Strigler. Pocket hole joinery has completely changed the way that we've worked over the years. It's a great way of joining wood together, but there's one drawback, and that is sometimes you have to fill in that hole with a plug like this. Well, that plug's never going to be perfectly flush, and so you have to sand it off. Now, one of the things I've learned recently to do, which saves me a lot of sanding time, is to trim that plug off using my multi-tool. Now, one of the things I like about this particular multi-tool is the trigger is right where I can get a hold of it and grip it while I'm working, and it's variable speed so I can ease my way into the cut, and the work light really helps me be able to see exactly where I'm cutting. This takes a little bit of practice, but boy, once you learn how to do it, you can save yourself a bunch of time trimming off these plugs. First thing I'm going to do is clamp the door to this board. And then I'm going to just get right down to where I can see it and start in real slow. Now all I need to do is come in with a random orbit sander, slick those up, and I'll be ready to move on to the next door.